Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. My name is Alan Ward, and for most of my adult life, I believed I had things under control. I worked as a senior cybersecurity analyst in Seattle, the kind of job where you spend your days catching problems early, isolating threats before they spread. I was good at it. Calm, steady, always 3 steps ahead. People said I had a gift for noticing small details before anyone else did. At home, I thought I had the same stability. My wife, Kathy, and I had been together for years, married for just one. She worked in marketing, handling events and campaigns for a tech company downtown. She was bright, social, fast-talking, always in motion. I used to admire how she could walk into a room and make it feel like a meeting, a party, and a strategy session all at the same time. We lived in a condo. No kids yet, but we'd mentioned the idea once in a while, usually when we were calm enough to imagine the future instead of just getting through the week. Our schedules were demanding. I worked long stretches behind screens. She bounced between calls, clients, and events. We had a system: simple dinners, late-night shows, weekends where we tried to reset. Nothing felt broken, nothing felt out of place, just busy, just life. If someone had asked me back then, I would have said our marriage was strong, not perfect, but functional. Two professionals operating with trust and independence. She needed space to be social. I needed quiet to think. The balance worked, or so I thought. Looking back, the first signs were already there. A shift in tone, a longer pause before answering a simple question. Her phone always in her hand, always lighting up. Moments that should have caught my attention but didn't. I chalked everything up to stress, deadlines, the usual grind. I didn't know that the same instincts that protected entire networks would soon have to protect me. But that part came later. Before everything collapsed, I truly believed Kathy and I were solid. I truly believed I knew the life I was living. I was wrong. The shift started quietly, the way most failures begin. Small changes, odd timing, a few details that didn't line up. If this had been a system at work, I would have flagged it. At home, I brushed it off. Kathy began coming home later than usual. First it was once a week, then twice, then it felt like every other night. "Client dinner," she'd say while kicking off her heels. "Last-minute planning. Team crisis." She always had a reason. None of them sounded strange by themselves. Her job was demanding, I knew that. But her tone changed, sharper, guarded, like every question I asked was an interrogation. One Tuesday evening, I noticed her phone buzzing nonstop while she cooked. She turned the device face down each time it lit up. That wasn't normal for her. Kathy loved flashing her screen at me whenever she had a funny meme, a friend's message, or anything she found interesting. "New password?" I asked casually when I saw her enter a longer code. "Security update," she said without looking up. A few nights later, we were supposed to go out for a rare Friday dinner. She canceled an hour before we left. "The venue lost power," she said. "Rescheduling everything." I nodded, but later that night I saw a rideshare receipt in our shared email. It showed a trip across town around the same time she claimed the venue went dark. I asked her the next morning where the venue was. Her answer didn't match the route on the receipt. She frowned. "Alan, you're overthinking again." Maybe I was. Around that time, a name appeared briefly on her screen when she flipped it over too quickly. George. A message preview. Something familiar enough to make her smile for half a second before she realized I saw it. "Who's George?" I asked. "A consultant," she replied instantly. Too instantly. I didn't push it. I stored the detail away, like a log entry. By then, the cracks were visible. She was defensive, distracted, always somewhere else in her mind. I didn't accuse her of anything. I simply watched. And the more I watched, the more I realized something was off. Once I recognized the pattern, I shifted into the mode I used at work. Observe first, act later. I didn't accuse Kathy. I didn't change my behavior. I simply paid attention. I checked the card statements. I wasn't hunting for trouble. I just needed clarity. On 2 of those late work nights, there were charges at a boutique hotel bar a few miles away. Small amounts, nothing dramatic, but they didn't match her story. Then I found something I couldn't explain away. One night, she said she was stuck at an off-site event until midnight. I had an overnight shift scheduled, so she assumed I wouldn't be home. Out of routine, I checked our building's camera feed, something I did occasionally when packages went missing. At 9:14 p.m., Kathy entered the lobby with a man behind her. The camera angle caught only his shape, not his face. Tall, business casual, holding his jacket over one arm. He followed her into the elevator. I stared at the screen for a long time. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Logic mattered more than emotion. I needed clear proof, not guesses. The next clue came by accident. One night, while I pretended to be asleep, she stepped into the hallway and whispered into her phone. I heard one sentence, quiet but clear. "I'll meet you soon, George." That was enough. The following morning, I told her I had a 2-day work trip coming up. She didn't question it. She even offered to drive me to the airport. Instead, I booked a cheap room near our condo. I packed a small bag to make the lie look real. I wanted to see what she did when she thought I was gone. I wasn't angry. I wasn't panicked. I was preparing. Kathy dropped me at the airport curb around 6 in the evening. She leaned over, kissed my cheek, and said, "Text me when you land." I nodded, rolled my small suitcase toward the doors, and waited until she drove away. Then I walked straight through the terminal, out the other side, and took a cab back to a hotel 2 blocks from our condo. By 9, I was outside our building. The entrance was fully visible from across the street. I waited with the same patience I used during long system audits. No anger, no rushing, just focus. At 9:37 p.m., Kathy walked out. She wasn't dressed for work. She wasn't dressed for anything she'd ever worn around me for a client dinner. She looked different, lighter, like she was stepping into a version of her life I wasn't part of. A rideshare pulled up. She got in. I followed. The car stopped outside a small boutique hotel downtown. Kathy stepped out without hesitation and walked inside like she'd done it before. I stayed across the street, watched the entrance, kept my distance. 10 minutes passed. Then he arrived. Mid-40s, business casual, jacket over one arm. He checked his phone once, then walked straight into the hotel. No uncertainty, no hesitation. George. It had to be. I took out my phone. Recorded. Not out of anger. Out of habit. Documentation matters. Time stretched. At 11:12 p.m., they came out together. Kathy was laughing at something he said, her hand lightly on his arm like it belonged there. Comfortable. Familiar. Then she kissed him. Not quickly. Not like a mistake. Like it was routine. I took out my phone and started recording again, keeping it steady for a few seconds longer before lowering it. That was enough. More than enough. I didn't follow them after that. I didn't need to. I went home. I laid everything out on the dining table. Printed receipts, screenshots, and a compiled timeline of timestamps. Clean, organized, clear. Then I waited. Kathy walked in just after midnight. She looked surprised to see me, but only for a second. Then her expression shifted. Confusion, then something tighter. "Alan, I thought your flight—" "Do you have something to confess?" I asked. She froze. I didn't say anything. I just opened my phone, found the video, and turned the screen toward her. It showed her and George outside the hotel, standing close, then kissing. And just like that, the truth caught up with her. Kathy didn't answer right away. She stood there like someone waiting for a verdict. Her eyes moved from the screen to my face, then back again. When she finally spoke, her voice barely held together. I made mistakes," she whispered. "That's not a confession," I replied. "Tell me the truth. All of it." She sank into the chair across from me. Her hands trembled as she picked up a hotel receipt. It wasn't supposed to become anything. It started months ago, after a project meeting. George and I were talking. He was just easy to talk to. "You talked," I said. "And then what? Hotels don't appear in conversations." She winced. "Alan, I know I messed up. I know this looks horrible." "It doesn't look horrible," I cut in. "It is horrible." She wiped her eyes and tried again. "I felt alone. You were always working. You didn't notice me anymore. George did. He listened. Don't blame this on my work," I said. My tone stayed flat, controlled. "You had 100 options before this. Talking to me was one. Lying wasn't." She pressed her palms into her eyes. "I'm sorry. I swear I didn't mean for it to go this far." "How far did it go?" She swallowed hard. "A few months, maybe most of the year." "Meetings," I said, tapping the receipts. "Drinks, hotel rooms. You walked another man into my home building. You kissed me goodnight after seeing him. That wasn't an accident. That was a pattern." Kathy broke down, breath hitching. "Please, Alan, don't give up on us. We can fix this. I'll block him. I'll quit. I'll go to counseling. Whatever you want. I shook my head slowly. You should have wanted to fix things before you crossed every line. She leaned forward uncontrollably. Just give me a chance. Please. No, I said. I'm done. Her face collapsed like she'd heard the ground open beneath her. She whispered, Where do we go from here? You'll sleep in the guest room, I said. Tomorrow we'll discuss next steps. I gathered the papers into the folder and stood. There was nothing left to argue. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't curse. I didn't ask why she chose him. I already knew the answer didn't matter. By morning, Kathy looked like she hadn't slept at all. I had, surprisingly. Calm decisions are easier when the denial phase is over. I made coffee, sat at the table, and opened my laptop. We're getting divorced, I said. No anger, no hesitation. Kathy flinched. Alan, please, we can try. No, I replied. You made your choice months ago. I'm making mine today. She didn't argue after that. Maybe she knew there was nothing left to bargain with. I met with Linda Bennett, a divorce attorney recommended by a coworker. Organized, to the point, and unfazed by anything I showed her. She reviewed the folder quietly, flipping through logs, statements, screenshots, and watching the videos I had taken. You handled this efficiently, she said. You documented misuse of marital funds, hotel charges, rides, all of it. That helps with division. I don't want to destroy her, I said. I just want out. You'll get out, she replied. Cleanly. While Linda prepared the paperwork, I searched for George Harlow online. There were photos of him smiling beside a woman named Amy Malik. Recent engagement pictures. Amy was a nurse at a local clinic based on her profile. I created an email with no emotion in it, just evidence and dates. Amy deserved clarity, the same way I did. I sent it and closed my laptop. Amy acted fast. That evening, George was removed from her apartment. The next morning, she contacted Kathy's company, attaching messages she found on George's phone. Chat threads mixing business with personal talk, scheduling meetups disguised as client prep. Kathy's department called her in. She returned home early, face drained. They took me off 2 accounts, she said quietly. Compliance is reviewing everything. I might lose more. I didn't respond. It wasn't my responsibility to comfort her anymore. 2 days later, I handed Kathy the divorce papers. She cried when she saw the settlement terms, but she didn't fight. I kept the condo, investment accounts, and my car. She walked away with a smaller share and 1 vehicle. She moved into a small rental near her office. Friends drifted from her. Co-workers whispered. The walls she built fell faster than she ever expected. I didn't celebrate any of it. I didn't need to. This wasn't revenge. This was closure. In the months that followed, the quiet felt unfamiliar at first, then peaceful. I filled my time with structure. Work during the day, long walks in the evenings, and weekends spent at a boxing gym near the waterfront. It became routine. Punches, sweat, focus. No room for the past, no space for bitterness. At work, life settled back into rhythm. I handled complex breaches, led 2 major investigations, and somehow found energy I didn't realize I'd been missing. I wasn't dragging emotional weight anymore. I also grew closer to Maya Thompson, a coworker who had a similar dry sense of humor. We grabbed lunch occasionally, talked about work, travel, things that didn't feel heavy. There was no pressure, no expectations, just simple company. Kathy stayed quiet after the move. She didn't call or send messages. Not for a long time. Then, about 7 months after the divorce paperwork was filed, she emailed, Alan, I'm really sorry for everything. I know I don't deserve your time, but I'd like to talk, just once. I read it 3 times, not because I was unsure, because I wanted to respond clearly. We met at a cafe near her office. She looked thinner, tired, and older than the last time I'd seen her. The fallout had changed her. I didn't feel anger or satisfaction, just distance. I know you don't owe me anything, she said softly. I wanted to apologize properly. I let her talk. She admitted the affair cost her friendships, work respect, and most of her confidence. She said George tried to apologize to her, then blamed her, then disappeared. When she finished, she asked, Do you hate me? No, I said. I just don't trust you. And trust is the only thing marriage runs on. She nodded, tears forming again, but said nothing. We ended the conversation politely. No plans to keep in touch, no second chances. As I walked away, it hit me how light I felt. Some endings don't hurt. They just close. A year passed before I realized how far I'd come. The condo looked different now. My routines were steady, morning workouts, clear-headed workdays, dinners that didn't feel rushed. Life wasn't loud or dramatic. It was stable. Kathy rarely crossed my mind anymore. When she did, it felt like remembering a job I once left, something that shaped me, but no longer defined anything. She had moved on too, from what I heard, still working at the same company but not in the same role. She kept to herself. The bright social woman she'd once been had dimmed. Choices have consequences. She learned that harder than I ever needed her to. What mattered was that I wasn't angry. I wasn't replaying old arguments or imagining different outcomes. I didn't want anything back. The man who once overlooked every warning sign wasn't the man standing here now. Later that week, Maya and I grabbed coffee after work. We talked about nothing dramatic: movies, plans, work jokes. She laughed easily. I liked that. There was no rush, no expectation, just a possibility I didn't mind exploring. As I walked home that night, I remembered the moment everything changed. The night Kathy walked in and I asked, "Do you have something to confess?" Had once felt like the end of my life. It turned out to be the beginning. I wasn't broken. I wasn't bitter. I was free. Thank you for watching.